This is a video to demonstrate some of the things we talked about in the phrasing exercises in class on Wednesday the 24th. I'm going to talk about a couple of different things. The first thing is using approach notes and approaching the root. And approaching the root is a great way to cause some tension and resolution. Of course, to make your solos sound like they're going somewhere, you've got to have a little tension, and you've got to resolve that tension. So, using the most common form of the pentatonic scale, I'm in G. I've got the root three places. The root is found on the 3rd fret of the 6th string in my 1st finger, on the 5th fret of the 4th string with my 3rd finger, and on the 3rd fret of the 1st string with my 1st finger. So the most common approach would be to go from the flat 7 up to the octave. I can also go from the 3rd, which is on the 3rd fret of the 3rd string. And what I'm doing, I'm basically playing either side of the G. If I go to the octave root on the top, on the 3rd fret, I can do a pull off there, or I can do a nice little thing where I'm playing the F on the 6th fret of the 2nd string with my pinky, and I can bend up to the root. And finally, the last one, and maybe the least useful one, is to play the 6th fret of the 6th string down to the low root. So I've got So I'm going to solo for just a minute over a G blues and demonstrate some of those. The big thing when you're doing something this simple, I mean, this is a pretty simple approach. When you're using this approach, what you want to focus on is your phrasing. I mean, this is all about working on phrasing, and by that I mean where you place the notes, what beat you're on in the measure. You want to experiment with placing the notes at a different place in the beat, several different places in the beat within the measure, and see what you like. So here's hopefully a demonstration of that. Okay, the next thing is approach notes using chord changes using approach chord tones at changes. So by that I'm looking at some of the notes in the chords, the most common notes right in the pentatonic scale, the root of each chord. The root of the 1 chord would be on the 3rd fret of the 6th string in the key of G. The root of the 4 chord, the C note, is on the 3rd fret of the 5th string, and the root of the 5 chord is on the 5th fret of the 5th string. That's a D. So you've got G, C, and D. You've also got G on the 5th fret of the 4th string, C on the 5th fret of the 3rd string, and D on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. So if I'm paying attention to what the chord changes are doing, and you really should be doing this, I want to make sure that I get to a chord tone on the downbeat each time there's a new change, a new chord change. And that's going to sound something like this. 1. There's the 5th of the C chord, which is also the 1 of the 1. One more time through the change. C chord. So I went to a C note. Back to the 1. D chord, D note. Now that wasn't perfect because in this particular blues that I'm using as an example, this is the one we did in class, where instead of going 5 to 4 to 1, it goes 2 to 4 to 1, using the 2 chord as a substitute, which is kind of weird. Another thing you can do, you could take a lick. Now I'm just gonna demonstrate really simple licks right now. I'm trying to play stuff that you can listen to and steal basically at whatever level you're at. So I'm not doing anything too flashy or fancy. There's no, you're not going to learn some great lick. What we're working on is learning a great technique, and that's the technique of learning to phrase and to say something when we play. So another thing you can do is to work on learning licks. When you learn a lick, if you learn something that you like, put it on different string sets. If you learn a lick on the 4th and 5th strings, move it to the 3rd and 4th strings if you can, or the 5th and 6th strings. Move it around, move it up an octave, and see if you can play in different places, because that's going to stick you in different positions of the pentatonic scale, and it's going to give you much better command of what's going on with the neck. You're gonna know your notes better. It's going to help in a lot of ways. So do that. And also, if you're doing that there we go, the world's loudest air conditioner just kicked on. If you're doing that and in a solo, you can use it as a way to kind of build something. You've got this happening. So, well, not a bad example, but not very fancy example, but once again, just trying to show you how this works and make it work well for you. The next thing, I'm going to leave the music playing for a minute here, because the next thing is one of the coolest things to do, and that is simply to add the major third when the chords go to the 1 chord. And in this case, the major third would be found on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. So I'm going to give you a little lick. I'm going to go from the 3rd fret with my 2nd finger sliding to the 4th fret, and then I end on the G on the 1st string at the 3rd fret. It didn't sound good the first 2 times I played it, but when I did it right when it was going to G, it worked pretty well. Goes to the 4 chord, I'm not going to do it there. But there, I anticipated, I went right before the G chord, I started the lick. Now that's giving you one simple lick, one simple idea, but you're not stuck there. What happened? You're not stuck with that lick, but that's a start. There's all kinds of things. All kinds of things you can do with that, but the main idea is just to figure out where that tone is and experiment with it. You've also got it on the pinky on the 1st string. You could slide up to it or you could bend up to it, and it's a neat tone to use over the 1 chord. Only on the 1 chord you're going to bend up to the what would this be in this case? You're going to bend up to a B, the 3rd of the G chord, and you could do it on the 6th string too. Once again, not the best place to play. And the last thing, and this is one of my favorite, exercises. This is something I did when I moved to Texas. This is one of the things I did to learn to phrase a lot better. It's kind of boring, but anyway, it's kind of boring, and but it's boring to start with. It's hard to do because you really have to concentrate on what you're doing, and you have to concentrate on not trying to get too fancy. But here it is. I'm going to play the notes in the scale and play them in order. And the only thing I can do to try to make this sound interesting is to work on my phrasing. So I'm going to try to make sure that I'm playing chord tones when the chord change happens. And you don't have to intellectualize this. If you do this enough, if you practice it enough, you'll start to see or to feel where they're gonna be or where they should be. You're gonna feel where those chord changes are coming, and you're gonna feel what notes work. It takes a little practice, but it's well worth it. So here we go, a quick demonstration of that. Just going up the scale and back. Okay, I'll stop there. I'm right in time. And that's the main part of all the lessons from last class. Just a quick demonstration of all the different techniques in a really cheesy video. Sorry, hope that works for y'all. I'm going to post this to YouTube and send a link to everybody as soon as I can.